Happy Friday, Facebook Live community and otherwise. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, welcome in, guys. Today we're talking about a topic that we've found has resoundingly delivered probably the most success with our private coaching students, we'll call them. And I think that it really revolves around a lot of clarity, and we're seeing that clarity is the topic for success in so many cases that we just couldn't help but take a Friday live to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, when you think of clarity, Josh, what do you think of, and what does business clarity look like compared to maybe some other forms of clarity?
Yeah, I have two interesting ways to answer that question. Clarity is being able to do an action for a long period of time because you know that you're on the right track, even if you're not seeing the result yet. I think that's the definition of clarity that has meant the most to me in the last couple of years because you have to delay gratification, but you have to know the entire time that you're on the right track. So that requires massive clarity. And I think a second step to that is clarity is also when I sit down at the computer and I can not be stalled or procrastinate or get overwhelmed or anything because I'm clear on what I have to do and how much I can handle so I actually do it because I have clarity on what's next. And I think clarity can mean a lot for our practice owners and for your overall macro business. I just want to share personally, like those two definitions of clarity drives my day-to-day pacing.
Yeah, I think those were awesome examples. One concept that we teach as part of our program is called the fire illusion, and the fire illusion looks like there's all these fires that are happening around you at all these times, and so your attention is split among all these different fires, and they all detract you from the one thing that you actually need to be doing that's actually going to move you the furthest.
Right.
It's kind of a internal shiny object syndrome. It's kind of a internal misprioritization of actions, of activities.
Yeah. And
When
if you're
it
and if you're tuning in right now, clarity is something that is a habit and a skill. So before we talk about both how to acquire and how to be more clear on your goals, I just want to start with the framework that having consistent clarity in the micro and in the macro, in the little day-to-day components and where your business is headed is an acquired skill. And the better you are at it, the more you're going to be able to lead yourself and lead your business and lead your team into whatever you define as success. If that's more revenue, you're going to be able to do the actions that produce the revenue. If that's more impact in your community, you're going to be able to be clear about what drives that impact. And on the list goes. You're going to drive the result the more clear you are on what drives the results.
Yeah. When I think of acquiring clarity, like acquiring clarity for the very, very first time, I think of boiling down what I'm like the activity I'm doing to the simplest, most fundamental pieces and starting there.
Yeah.
And so when I think of a goal that I have or some type of projection that I want or some type of, whatever it is that we're looking for in practice, in private practice, this might be I want a certain number of clinicians, or I want a certain number of caseload, or I want to be able to help certain amount of people. So taking that goal, reverse engineering it to its most simple components, and then from there determining how to get those things to happen. And then, quite frankly, don't change plans because
Yeah.
your plan A was probably a good plan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's the patient aspect of things is oftentimes um, it's using a set of binoculars almost to look at something in the distance, and it's our own changing hands and our own moving and jostling whatever that we have to constantly bring it back into focus, even if the thing we're looking at or trying to get to hasn't changed at all. And so this action of we constantly are looking left and right and things interrupt our flow and our process, and it's also reestablishing clarity on just what's working and sticking with it long enough is a huge part of this process.
so how do we get clarity? How do we
Yeah.
get clarity?
We were actually talking about this last Friday on one of our major coaching calls inside of the private program. And oftentimes, the fastest way to gain clarity is to have a framework. And for me, questions drive my frameworks that produce clarity. So just on a habitual level, that there's a couple models that we can think about and a couple ways that we can gain clarity, but just start asking yourselves questions and questioning your actions and your beliefs and your processes is a good way to start. Uh, on a several times a week, I try and do this almost every day. Definitely doesn't happen every day, but I sit down and I just journal about the questions that are flowing through my head. And that allows me to gain clarity on me and where I'm headed. And then that flows into my biggest or my one main question that I ask all the time, which is what is the number one thing that I can do right now? Meaning, right now is in today, this week, this month. What's the number one thing I can do right now that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And there's a couple different chunks or components in that question that slowly, the immediacy of it. Can I accomplish that thing right now? The vision of it. How does this fit into my broader vision that will move it forward? And then the capacity of it. Can this eliminate other issues or make my life easier by doing this thing right now? So filtering through a framework like the one thing can help you gain clarity on daily, weekly, monthly actions on yourself or your business. That's one framework. We can talk about a couple others here.
Yeah, I I like to look at finding clarity through the um, through sort of the simplicity, especially like looking at this through the lens of a business. Like
Yep.
look at it as a game, right? The business is a game, and we know that to win our game, there's certain things that have to happen. And so, if you're playing baseball, there's certain things that have to happen to win your game. You have to, hit the ball, get on bases, and move enough people around the bases to score points, and you have to score more points than your opponent, right? And that's how you win the game.
Yeah.
Business is a little bit of a different game because there's not really a set of rules and there's no timelines on it. And so it's not a normal game like baseball, it's an infinite game. That's what it's called. And so by understanding the rules of an infinite game, we can start making better decisions for ourselves and have much higher clarity for how to actually win the game. And so in game theory, if you pay attention to math, or if you like Simon Sinek, he wrote an awesome book about game theory, about infinite or finite games. So I'm sorry. And essentially, what he does is he lets you know that, well, for an infinite game, the point of the infinite game is to keep the game going. And so you can make great decisions for yourself like that. And then you can make great decisions for yourself by prioritizing and weighting the decisions that you have through a filter.
Yeah.
There's some type of filter that you create for yourself. So, what does that filter look like for business? If you're asking me, the filter looks like this: you got to make money, you got to make money, you got to do what you said you're going to do, and then you got to make people happy enough that they want to keep coming back or tell more people about your business.
Yeah.
So, if strangers don't know about you, they can't work with you. If people aren't working with you, you can't produce a service. If you're not producing a service, you can't make people happy so that they'll want to come back to you. And that's the hierarchy. That's the hierarchy for business. And in that way, you can keep the game going. You can keep the machine going. If you try to do things in reverse, or you try to focus on things that are outside of that swatch, we'll call it, then you're trying to play the game in a wrong way. You're trying to pitch when you should be hitting. You're trying to outfield when you should be on second base.
And I think to bring this home, so to speak, to private practice ownership and business development specifically, there are a couple places that we see therapists get stuck as they're growing their business. Big points where they don't have a lot of clarity because you haven't been given the information, right? You don't have either have the framework, you don't have the resources, or there's too many options, right? If you walk into the grocery store and you're trying to buy toilet paper, I don't know, like last time I tried to attempt that, I was like, how am I supposed to make a choice about The toilet paper, I like the amount of choices, right? What makes one better than the other, right? The equivalent of that decision in certain stages of private practice ownership. So if you're just starting out, wow, how do I get my business up and running? What do I do first? How do I prioritize? The whole marketing bucket. Man, what's actually important? How do I know what I need to be doing? Should I post on social media? A good portion of my time spent with people who aren't clients of ours that are looking to extend, into our full program are asking questions like that of like what marketing actually makes a difference in this day and age. Do paid ads work, right? They need clarity on what's working right now for marketing. And then it's like, well, how do I go from solo to group? How do I actually hire 10 clinicians? How fast should I go, right? Each one of these things is an issue of clarity. And sometimes knowledge produces clarity, and sometimes knowledge, right? Oh man, I've got all of this information available to me about these toilet papers. It's all right in front of me. How on earth am I supposed to process this information in a timely manner and just get home with, whatever? And that I think is the bigger problem. Is the information is there, but in excess sometimes actually, so you don't know what's valuable in the noise so you can actually make a concise, clear decision.
Yeah, I'd say knowledge is a great way, and then action might be the other way that you
Yeah.
acquire it. If you're like, hey, does social media work? An interesting way to do it would be to just try it, right? Just try it, go out and do it, fail 5, 10, 20 times, and then see how it kind of pans out. In that way, you acquire knowledge, but at least it's kind of contextual for your situation, for what you want to do.
Yeah.
The worst part about all of this, guys, is that there's so much information out there. Yeah, like we're being marketed all the time for a million different things that could happen. You want to grow your business with social, you can grow your business with social. You want to grow your business with ads, you can grow your business with ads. Do you want to go do psych today? Do you want to go be a coach? There's a million options, and so we have so much noise. And so sometimes you just have to decide.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to decide on something, see that it's working for someone else, know that there's enough events or research or things out there that suggest one thing is a solution, and just kind of go after that one thing. In our program, we give people very, very, very direct things to do. Like you do this, you do this, you do this, and you do this. And so that helps create so much clarity. And it's just because you're being told what to do, right?
Yeah.
You're being told what to do. And sometimes that's just what's needed. You just need to be told, or you just need to decide on a path and take that path, right?
Yeah. And I think, that's one of the best ways is use someone else that has the clarity or has the framework and the process and borrow their clarity so you can speed up how fast you take action. How because every time you have to answer the question, what's next? How do I do this better? How do I both acquire this knowledge and know that I'm acquiring the correct knowledge and do the thing right? Like you waste a lot of time. So the practice owners that we have seen go the fastest, in our program are the ones that have chosen a path and just like steamrolled through a certain set of execution points. Oh man, I kind of like social media. What does it take to be successful on acquiring clients through social media? Boom, they went all in on that. They dedicated themselves to fully understanding that. They ignored all other client acquisition channels and they were okay with the consequence of their business not growing unless they got this channel to work with them. But same story for paid ads, and same story for networking, and same story for listing site blasting and other organic methods, right? And so, if you're looking for clarity, especially in the marketing category, commit to a way, commit to a process, go all in on it, make it your main thing, and don't diversify. You can't afford to diversify yet if you're growing your business, especially if you're like under $100,000, but especially under maybe even $1 million potentially for your business right now.
Yeah. When actually we could go down a whole rabbit hole for
Yeah.
diversification. I don't think we need to do that, guys. I'll spare you guys on this one.
Gaining clarity.
Yeah, let's keep it clear here. Let's keep it nice and clear here. I think the last arm on clarity might just be so you've just reverse engineered your trip to your goal. You've just decided on a path. Finally, it's actually sticking to it, like making the
Yep.
habits and sticking to it. Josh, do you have any pointers on how can people stick to it? How can you possibly stick to something if it's not working for you too, especially at first?
So there's two reasons why it's not working. You're either doing something wrong or you're not doing something well enough yet. And if you're doing something brand new that no one has ever done before, or you're like at the tail end or wind of it, maybe it's wrong place, wrong time, and it's not on the table. But more often than not, you just aren't executing at a high enough skill level or in the correct way. And either you have to learn from someone else the best way to do it and acquire some more knowledge and then try again, but rubber meets the road. You just have to cyclically show up and do it. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get, and eventually you're going to see the outcome. I saw a really crazy video the other day. I was doing a deep dive on a really specific TikToker that I have a lot of respect for and the type of content that that person comes out. And I'm like, wow, they're so phenomenal in it. Look at the size of their following. And I was like, man, how did this happen for them, right? And then I started scrolling and they had like 1,400 TikToks that they had posted. Like it was well over 1,000, and it was just an absurd amount. And then I saw a video about halfway through his feed, and it was just like zero, zero, zero. And you saw this slow evolution as I like went through each one of his videos, and they just got like a little better and a little better and a little better. And he just showed up often enough in the way that the platform wanted and got better enough to the point where his first video blew up and then his second and this, whatever. And then, but it was the habit that kept him showing up, whether it's networking, whether it's strong copywriting on your website, whether it's consistent hiring and managing people, any category of business that's going to make your private practice successful. All it requires is the habit of showing up consistently. You have to have clarity to know that that's what will make you successful, which I just gave you. And then you have to imbue that in yourself and prioritize your calendar to show up and do it. And I want to say one more side note that I would love to do probably another topic on next week, and that is the art of trusting yourself. The more often you successfully come to a point of clarity and take action on it on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, and like it all works out, the more you'll trust yourself to do it again and again and again. Seek clarity in the small things and take action in the small things, and then do that on the big things. And that all is going to steamroll to you being able to successfully acquire the skill of gaining clarity and taking well oiled direct action out of it.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I have nothing to add. That was awesome. Guys, clarity is possibly one of the biggest things that we see people use to find success in our program, even just finding focus. Like focus and clarity, the transformation we see people make in about 3 months looks like I have no idea what I'm doing, or I'm doing a million things all at once. And then they transform by saying, I feel like I've got my stuff straight. I know exactly what I'm doing. They're clear, focused, and the activities that they're doing, it's not like it takes a long time.
Yeah.
That's the beauty about focus, is it doesn't take a long time. You're just doing the right things and you're just sticking with it. And so
Yeah.
we wanted to present this because we've just this week we've found so many people have such great success inside of the program that we had to share it, guys. We got to share the love here.
And
Um,
and any person who's like looking to join our program always asks like, "Oh man, like how many hours a week, right?" I think the average person is probably committing like 5 to 12 hours a week on their business development. Like just spending time on their building the business, right? But it's spending that 5 to 10ish hours a week on the correct things in the correct order, with the correct resources when they do or don't go well. And so, clarity is brought in and that action is taken. And my last comment would be typically for every single practice owner we work with in a really like intimate way, there's always usually one linchpin, one big thing, if they focus on that, like one big thing, everything else falls under it. For some practice owners, it's cracking the code on paid ads. For some, it's developing a value driven sales process. For others, it's how do I recruit my next 10 counselors? And for some, it's, how do I build systems and operations that flow without me, right? And typically, if you're in need of like one of those big things, and when you focus with clarity that like, oh, this is the number one thing I need, everything else flows out of it. And 3, 6 months later, by putting supreme clarity on that big bucket, your business is fundamentally different at the end of it, on a revenue level, on an impact level, and on an
On the
emotional level.
leadership, the
Yeah,
leadership. Well, guys, that's all we got this time around. Thank you so much. And let us know if you need some clarity. We're happy to
yeah.
help.
Cheers, everyone.